One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego. Or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
All right, we're back and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Alphayanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio, live. Yeah, so microphone is fixed. I mean, my compressor, preamp, tube preamp is fixed. I'm a happy camper. Also, some good news on the, cautiously I call it good news. There's a big resistance coming to this mandated of the experimental medicine. And I'm encouraged to see this, and it looks like that possibly this division between, say, Trump and non-Trump and various racial or gender outlooks, this could possibly be the uniting force is the opposition to the mandates. You have, of course, Trump wanting not the mandate, but he supports the vaccine. You have Trumpers and non-Trumpers both not wanting to force mandates. You have black, white, Hispanic across those lines not wanting the mandates. You have various class of worker or managers, whatnot, not wanting the meeting, the mandates. You also have now Protestant and Catholic bishop, a cardinal, coming out on this against the mandate stuff. So we're seeing this happen. This could be odd. You have Nicki Minaj, the rapper, along with country singers, and rockers, Eric Clapton, etc., are all coming out on this. Not all. This is not like all of them, but there are people coming out saying, look, I can go along with global warming. I can go along with some type of equity. I know it's misplaced and it's phony, but the equity, things going wrong with inequity of certain groups and all this. But when it comes to forcing me to stick a needle in me, experimental medicine, that's where I draw the line. And hopefully that's maybe where we can start building to realize what the Bill of Rights and the innate rights from our Creator, what it actually means for everyone without having to be a certain political or group or whatever to go for it. So I'm encouraged on this. I'm reading one after the other. They've in court they had to settle for the counting of the ballots in the various areas. So now they're going to have to go through with it. They're going to be able to have the intimate information and routers and whatnot. Those are all good services. Now, of course, after I saw the second Matrix movie, I didn't like any of the, second or third. But there was a good point in there about the programmer. They found it's the architect, I think it's called, in there. The programmer of the Matrix, they've already planned for all different things. So let's hope that's not the case. We do know that they are not almighty. God is. And, with my talking on the complexity, theory of complexity, there's so many things affecting so many things that are so small and hidden to move mountains that, there's still stuff left to go. But getting back to the topic I wanted to mention, last week I did a thing on authority, and to make a brief summary, I've come up with basically 3 types of authority. You have the brute force authority. I'm robbing you because I have a gun, or what have you. I'm a king taking over your country because my army will slaughter you. Then you have the corporate kind of authority where you have a hierarchy with certain authority being assigned by the hierarchical system, corporation, if you will, to the people. So, for example, an individual could fire or hire another one in that company, but they don't have the authority in a different company. So it's a structured and it's delegated in a limited breadth, but the power is vertical. And then you have the authority of truth, reality, and residence, where when Jesus talked, they were amazed because he spoke with authority, not like the Pharisees. Pharisees, had authority of schooling, years of interpretation in the Bible and so forth. But when Jesus spoke, the resonance of the truth of it came through those who had ears to hear, those who were open to that resonance, felt that resonance, something they did not feel, did not sense, I guess is a better word, from the Pharisees. And you can listen to that last week to get more details on it. So as I was thinking on what to do here, I was kind of moved in several different ways, and I kind of just went with the flow. And I wanted to talk about Illumined authority. And I figured that Illumined, that might get some attention as Illuminati and whatnot. But there is a point to that, which I will get to. One of the verses here, Matthew 20:24. One of the disciples, some of the disciples were just saying they wanted to be number 1 and number 2 behind Jesus, and they got into a fight, whatever. And Jesus said to them, the rulers of the Gentiles, and the Gentiles in this terminology is they're talking about themselves being Jews in Israel, and they don't have the power of authority in that sense because, the Romans were over them, which the Romans being non-Jewish, therefore Gentiles. That the rulers domineer over them, and those in high position exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you, referring to those now who are in this group with Jesus. And the previous fight where inside that group we're talking about having this hierarchy of authority. It is not this way among you, but whoever wants to become prominent among you, great, some would translate great among you, shall be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you will be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and give his life a ransom for many. So you have this idea that when you have somebody in authority, that authority is meant to serve the highest, best good, as I put it, the highest, best good of all involved. And depending upon what that is, sometimes you can serve somebody by limiting their actions, or you can serve somebody by helping them blossom in those actions, depending upon the goodness of it. And that's another topic on it. But what I liked about the verse in here, there was a part, where was it? I'll get this on other shows. The ransom for many. That is I got a whole theory that I've come up with to explain the salvation of Jesus in a more detailed section, and I'll get that, I'll get that another time because I want to continue on top here. So I'm going to skip over that part. Another verse to show what I'm thinking. We're not getting a bunch of verses. I've gotten comments where people like and dislike me going up all kinds of verses, but I'll throw a couple out there and people can look into it. But I like this as a touchstone to the truth, not a particular doctrinal interpretation, but when I get intimate with the teaching. There was a large crowd was following Jesus, and two people were blind sitting by the road, hearing that Jesus was passing by, cried out to them, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." But the crowd sternly warned them to be quiet, yet they cried out all the more, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." Now I want to stop there for 1 second, and as I looked into the word mercy, have mercy on us. When I read this stuff, I get kind of like a key. I get like a little underline, and you go, check this word out in the Greek or Hebrew, because there's some stuff there. And most times there is. So I follow that little guidance. And one thing I saw in there in the describing of the word that's being used, the Greek word, is the word pity. I have pity. And I said, ooh, that's a key word to me. And then when I thought about it, I looked at some of the translations of it, said, the next part of this is Jesus stopped and called to him, "What would you have me do for you?" And he told them, we would like our eyes to be opened. And he was moved with compassion. The pity part, Lord, have pity on us. Lord, be empathetic to our condition. And the word Lord there, Kyrios, is used to denote somebody in authority. Okay? So you have, speaking of this authority thing, as I dug into this, I started seeing there's something going on here with this authority. So as he did this, they are saying to him, they're saying to him, Lord, Master, the Kyrios, Master, one with authority, Son of David, again, another word of authority, Son of the King, have mercy or have pity us or be compassionate or empathetic to us, on us. And they asked Jesus, what would you have me do for you? Lord, again, Master, a man of authority, one who can do this, please, we want our eyes to be open. And Jesus didn't go all right, I'll take care of it. That's cool. He was moved with compassion. Here is this individual of authority who was moved with compassion and touched their eyes. And immediately they regained their sight. And when I looked up the words behind that, I got that memorized. When I looked up the words behind that, regained their sight, the actual Greek word was looked up. So it's like when they touched his eyes, they immediately looked up, saw Jesus, right? And then it says, and they followed him. So you have the way this context really gives us kind of a view of the proper faith aspect. You're going to, Lord, the person who has authority, have pity on us, identify compassionately with our condition. And then you notice that Jesus stopped and called at him and asked, what would you have me do? So now you have the man of authority asking, what would you have me do? Lord, we want our eyes to be open. Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes, and they looked up and saw him and followed him. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I think this is. So there's an example of a man with authority, or a person with authority, and acting on them with this. Not the people we see now in authority who are taking people and killing them, harming them, whether it be with drone attacks, whether it be with experimental medicine, whether it be with sticking them into the ill people in with the weak. so they get sick and die, either not caring or purposely. That's not what the authority does. The authority asks what they would want, or see what the condition is, and with compassion to provide them the highest, best good, they act. That is what authority does. That is what illumined authority does. That's the enlightened authority. Now, I'll get to the enlightened in a minute. Reason why I stick on that one. Let me look through my notes here. Okay. All right. We're going to skip for now. And then we go back to a verse of Matthew 6:20-24. There was a dissertation about there. And in summing up, Jesus says, "But store for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust can destroy, where thieves cannot break in and steal. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also." Your heart, when we talked about a few weeks ago, talking about the idea of the heart being this connection to the spiritual emotion. I mean, you have the mind, which is the body, the brain, and then you have the heart, which is the spiritual. And that I said that being reborn takes those things and puts them back together again, because they've been broken apart in this world where the mind is in charge and they only concentrate on fear. That's a couple of shows ago. You could check that out. And then this is the statement that I really kind of drilled down into. The eye is the lamp of the body. So then, if your eye is clear or accurate, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad or evil, your whole body will be full of darkness. And so the idea of the Illuminati and the Illumined, we see this throughout history. They're the elites that think that they know it all. Really, they're being tricked by the dark side, by Satan or the hierarchy in the dark side. And so if the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? So you could see the difference between the false illumined or darkness that we see in the people running the world, the New World Order and Great Reset and et cetera, et cetera. When you see those people who are running it, they are not doing it for the highest, best good and with compassion for that growth. It's for authority and management. Going back to the other verse, that rulers of the Gentiles domineer over them. Those in high places exercise authority of them. This is what we're seeing in this latest endeavors, opening up, revealing, apocalyptic, if I can Englishise the Greek, as it opens up and reveals itself. You are seeing the Illuminati, which is the light in you of darkness. How great is the darkness? Coming out in their authorities, looming over, and using their authority to force you to do things that are harmful to you. And it says, I've talked a whole show on this last line here, but no one can serve two masters who either hate one or love the other, or he'll be devoted to one, despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And I went through a whole thing on mammon. You could probably look it up in there. Because it's more than just wealth. It's really the materialism is how I put it in there. You cannot serve God and materialism. You cannot, if you're lording over people and getting them to do what you want for your own gain, that is serving materialism, mammon. And the light that's illumining these illumined is really darkness. And so their darkness is great, and of course their deeds are greatly ill. Yeah, because I looked at the more literal Greek thing, and it's like if the light in you is evil, it is wicked, malicious, slothful. These are the synonyms for that word. And the light of you. So they're being illumined by darkness. That darkness is lighting their body with great darkness. Their deeds are doing harmful, and they're lording their authority over humans to serve them as masters, lording over them. I mean, it's clear as a bell when they're doing this, and especially when you have the Bill of Rights, etc., here legally protecting them, just being ignored and pushed. But I'm really happy to see people are saying no. They're not trying, and then they tried to lure them in to come out, hoping they would attack at the Capitol. They had the police there and all the fencing and all that, and then nothing happened. They're trying to lure them into doing things. We're not. To say no to the darkness of the false pseudo-illumined leaders is not to use the power against us. They don't understand power. So if they have money, it's because it does power. There's power in providing the lust of the lower emotions for favors being done. That's where all that power is. But the people who have their light in their body is clear, the whole body is full of light. There's no dark corners. And you will walk into the light and you will have this compassion for and pity for those in need. And the greatest segment of Jesus' teachings, let me see if I can find this really quick, is the Beatitudes. If you ever want to find out what it's like to be a human, filled with light, there we go, Matthew 5. I'm going to click to do the whole chapter. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. They're in the authority. They're in the structure of the kingdom of heaven. They have accurate lighting. Because, one thing, if you look at Mark, it says, blessed are the poor. It doesn't say poor in spirit. Some have theorized that a scribe entered in spirit to further enunciate that it wasn't simply the material poor, but the humble. But then they mentioned mourn, gentle, and so soulful. So I don't know. It might be referring to people who are materially challenged, I guess the word would be now. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Of course, you look at a kingdom, and you look at the glory of a kingdom, and you have riches and whatnot. So, I think that's the idea there. Blessed those who mourn, for they will be comforted. If you mourn for the condition, if you have empathy, compassion, and you mourn for the condition, that mourning of somebody who is poor, who doesn't have the means to help it, but rest assured, your sensitivity and mourning will be comforted because God has a plan. Blessed are the gentle, for they will inherit the earth. Not the bombastic, false, illumined, authoritative, driven, neo-Nazi, whatever you want to call them. The people who are the fascist, the communist, the fascist, those people will not inherit the earth. The gentle, those who would serve, as Jesus mentioned in there. The gentle, the humble, or the meek is the way you could translate that. You might have heard it meek in other translations. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. You want to see, you have a hunger and thirst as the metaphor. When you're hungry and thirsty, you want to be drenched with righteousness, and you will be satisfied. Blessed are the mercy, for they'll receive mercy. There you go. You are compassionate, and you give compassion, you'll receive compassion. Blessed are poor at heart. That's got the clear eyes that can allow the light to come in without any kind of deviation or jealousy or whatever. They will actually see God. Your light, if your eye is clear and the light comes in, you will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. The people who seek out to make peace. Blessed are those who have persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For the sake of righteousness. That's just doing what's right. You're helping somebody do what's right, and you tell the truth, and you're nailed for it. You're in the top 10 in here. So this is the kind of aspect of what we're looking at when we're talking about authority. And we're seeing authority being waved out there in big time measure. And the true authority that it should be is authority of having the ability and power to recognize clearly with the light of God's illumination to be compassionate and empathetic and help those you have the ability in your authority to help. And your authority could be like you have money that you can help it, or you have time that can help it, or you have certain tools or talents that can help them. That would be your quote authority. Remember I mentioned this before with Jesus, when we talk about authority, having the ability and being capable of. So your authority to help people is going to be your ability within your means, within your talents. And Jesus mentions also when someone asks you to walk with them for a while, go too. They ask if you have a shirt, give them your coat as well. The idea being is that when you put your all into your understanding, compassion, and helping, and you do what you can, because it's synchronistically you're put in that position to be able to help. God, there's a great thing happening in my area neighborhood here. There's a guy down the street who's a hoarder, and he's trying to be evicted. And they bought the house, and it's a big mess, right? So how do you help him? Somebody who has that kind of problem is an illness, and you can't just say stop it. You can't just do it. I mean, this is something that's going on for years and years and years. So this is where God comes in on this, and prayers for him. Someone reached out to a organization, Good Samaritans, whose job is to help the elderly, and they're in their condition to come in and help with no charge, and using trained experts in the area are helping him to clean the stuff out now, and he's cooperating, which is the bottom line. And when it comes to God, if you have a problem in your life, you're going to have to cooperate with it. I often just wish that God can wave a wand and the problem goes away. But if it was in your best interest, God has done that, because God has healed many where they have suffered with a problem, and all of a sudden, bam, they're healed, right? But also sometimes God wants you to walk through it and learn from it and come out of it. That's even a greater type of a thing. So now they're out there cleaning up everything, and he's involved with it. To me, that's a miracle. That's to me like somebody who had a deformed arm or a paralyzed arm can now move it. I mean, this is, to me, in a spiritual, mental health sense, this is a potential healing going on, and it's great to see. God is going to be doing great things in this time. There's a lot of bad stuff happening. A lot of great things are happening. And if we call ourselves Christians, meaning the following of Jesus and his teachings, we will be the tools. We are Jesus with skin on, if you will, or God with skin on, however you want to say it. The idea is that we're the material entry point in space-time for God to work. He can reaches down through us, and through our cooperation and listening, we are we're not automatons, and God will call upon us to do things that will be either using our talents and or will be for our best growth potential. And by going along with this stuff, this is what it's all about. So, if you have a talent in a certain area, you have an authority in that area, you can use that authority with compassion to help people for highest best good. That doesn't mean you give drugs to a drug addict, and further that you're helping them out in a short-term, so to speak, sense. That's what that means, but and we see this stuff happening now that's going out there with all this stuff going on with the fighting and battling and new world stuff and crunching down and possibly people being fired or whatnot for not having experimental medicine, agreeing to take it or whatever. This is where we also could help. And I can't tell you what, you will know how you can do it along the way. We have to be very sensitive this time and help one another, because we are the people really that are stepping up and in this area to make a stand. The nurses are standing together saying, no, we're not going to get forced to take experimental medicine. And they have to pull back on it because the hospital will close, or teachers, or whatever. All these people are using their authority with their rights of God-given rights to not have that happen to them, and they're making a stand, and in sheer volume, it's working. Now, I don't think it's over. I don't think it's getting better. It'll be done in 2 weeks. It'll be over. But it's encouraging to see the masses of people saying no, and of all walks of life, all political walks of life, are saying no. And I don't think the authorities really thought that would happen. And so they're fighting back. And, like a caged animal, it could get dangerous. But just remember that idea when you go through life. It warns in Genesis that because of the evil, people's heart grow cold. We have to remember not to have our heart grow cold. We have to have whatever we're engaged in, whatever we have authority in our position, whether of talents or position, we have to remember to be compassionate, to have empathy for the individual, and to put forth our abilities to do the highest, best good. And again, seeking God for guidance. And so that there's clues that things will happen, a little clues that will happen. Things will come up. You mention something to somebody, they go, hey, there's this group that helps people, elderly, and their conditions. Just by talking and finding out, you call them up, find out what's going on, and all of a sudden now help is going on. That took people doing that. For whatever reason, God has chosen us, the flawed humans, as the instrument of his blessings in earth, probably most of the time. And it's kind of like behooves us. That's what Jesus talked about. Well, you never gave me something to drink. You never visited me in a prison. You never helped me out. And everybody's like, why? When have we ever not done that? We didn't. When have we not done that? Well, when you've not hurt you've not helped this little one, you've not helped me. So, you see this whole kind of web there, and it's like, wow, all this ties in. It's real tight. It's unfortunate if you're trying to get out of it, because it's a real firm teaching of what to do. Again, if you're claiming to be a Christian, or at least righteous, this is what this is. If you don't claim, you don't want to be righteous, you want to be evil, well then, there you go. So I have to go. It's kind of a short one, but it's, pretty good. I didn't ramble on too much. And I will get back next time. I don't want to say the tides are turning, because that's too dramatic. I think it's, if you look at a heartbeat on a EKG, that's what I think is going on. You have evil stepping forward, evil falling backward, good stepping forward. You have this dance that's going on. And as this dance goes on, people will have the opportunity to turn it a leaf, to take the energy that's here. There's a lot of negative energy here. That means there's a lot of God energy here too. Just by definition, when evil's around, it's around because there's God energy is around because evil's around. Evil takes that first step, God takes the next step, and it's a superior step. It's often subtle, and also depends on a very complex system that you might not see it working, but it's working. And we're not attached to the end result. I'd like it to be good ending. We know it will work out good eventually. We know all things work for good for those who love God and those who follow his word, is how I would paraphrase it. We know all of that, so we just have to continue doing that. Okay, I have to go. God bless you all, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
one who walk again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight, retell your timeless truths. Oh, it's your one.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync radio network of stations.